Good afternoon, and welcome to Many Paths, Many Visions, brought to you by the Labyrinths Society and with your host, Christiana Brinton. Today, TLS, the Labyrinth Society Membership Chair, Janice Lewis, discusses creating diversity within the Labyrinth community through inner city programs using labyrinths and targeting at-risk youth people, at-risk young people. If you are joining us on this GoToMeeting session, please mute your sound by clicking on the microphone icon in the upper left of the GoToMeeting control panel that will appear on your computer screen once you log in. If you call in by phone, you'll not see this. You can unmute yourselves and ask questions during the Q&A session at the end of the interview, which I will set aside 15 minutes for. And so find the GoToMeeting invitation posted on the TLS Facebook page, the global group, and on the website under Media Resources Media. This episode is entitled Creating Opportunity Through Diversity by Connecting Labyrinths to Inner City Youth Programs. My guest, Janice Lewis, has certificates in multiple mediation styles and peacekeeping and peace-promoting modalities. For many years, she has used her knowledge and skills in service to her Chicago community in the Chicago Lights program at Fourth Presbyterian Church. Greetings, Janice, and welcome to Many Paths, Many Visions. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Christiana. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, so 2 years ago, you were my guest on this podcast show. We talked about your involvement with Chicago Lights then. So listeners can check out the episode. It's episode number 4 from the 21st of October 2016. And it's under resources /media / social causes to hear a more in-depth description of what Chicago Lights offers and Janice's role in some of the programs at that time. For this episode, I wanted to find out how your use of Labyrinth in your peacemaking and peacekeeping work has evolved since then. And also, I'd like to know about how this passion addresses the subject of diversity indirectly or directly, and what that looks like within the events you provide. But first, let's give our listeners a quick summary of what Chicago Lights is and your reason for volunteering with them.
Such a good question. Chicago Lights is about offering hope and opportunity to those who are challenged by poverty in Chicago. And they do that by offering a dance academy for the children. They have a social service center for adults. They have a summer day camp and tutoring that happens during the school year, and an urban farm. And why do I volunteer? I think that was the next part of the question you asked. I really volunteer because Chicago Lights is making a difference in Chicago. They are doing that by relationships. And through a simple invitation for me to offer meditation in the tutoring program, that's how it began. I had this feeling that it could be really fun. And so I stepped in gently. I found a team that was willing to walk with me to see what this was about. We started opening doors and knocking on doors at Chicago Lights, and we built this program that includes curriculum. And I am proud to say it's called Peace Club. And I will say I did nothing more than many other people do or could do. It was through a simple invitation and a feeling that it could be bigger than that invitation. And it is. And it's impacting many hundreds of people a year. A simple invitation is where it started, Christiana.
So you started this out of an invitation as a way of providing meditation practices to these at-risk youth from areas of Chicago, not just one, but multiple areas in Chicago. These kids are drawn from multiple areas that are below the national average for in a poverty. And you have then developed this program into something called Peace Club. So how has this changed since this initial invitation to where you are now? So how many years has this been, and has it coincided? I mean, what came first? Your desire to get certified in additional healing modalities, or was it all wrapped up in together? Like you saw a need and you met it with additional certification. How did this all become this now program that has multiple aspects to it?
Yes. So I would say that Peace Club has changed over the last 2 or 3 years that we've been offering it. It has changed in many different ways. It is really part of Chicago Lights. So the staff, the guests at the Social Service Center, the people who work at the urban farm and the farmers there, they come and ask for Peace Club sessions. And so the team, I'm privileged by organizing a team of 8 adult meditators. And we offer Peace Club in most all aspects of Chicago Lights. So it's really changed because we have taken it quite deep into the whole organization of Chicago Lights. And also, I would say it's changed, Christiana, because not only have we taken the Peace Club idea, and I'll talk a little bit about Peace Club in just a minute, but we've also taken, I talked about how we took it deeply inside of Chicago Lights, but we've also taken it outside of Chicago Lights. So we have offered, there is a private club on the 67th floor of Willis Tower. And we have done a chocolate and champagne event for Chicago Lights. And also we had a high tea where the children from the dance academy, because Chicago Lights has a dance academy, were able to dance up on the 67th floor and experience what a high tea is. I'm a firm believer in taking things deep when I have a real passion for them, and also not only deep, but outwardly, so others can get to know about this wonderful nonprofit. So I'll talk just a moment about Peace Club because I've mentioned it a couple times, but Peace Club, its core is mindfulness, meditation, and it includes mandalas, labyrinths, and peace circles. Now, my certifications before I partnered with a team to start Peace Club, my certifications were in all of those. I don't offer anything to anybody unless I'm well certified and trained. And but the one thing that has changed is that I decided that I would earn this past year my 4th meditation certificate. And that is, I chose to do that because it's a certificate that its whole focus is on those who live in poverty. So I learned additional training about trauma impact, trauma-informed impact, and many other things that are really important to know when you're with people who might have been impacted by trauma. And the whole training, it was done by Engaged Mindfulness Institute, and the training was deep and wonderful. And I feel like not only am I well trained in meditation and peace circles and mandalas. I even was trained as a mandala facilitator, but now I'm really trained, well trained in being able to offer mindfulness meditation to those who live in poverty. And I'm very proud of that.
And are you allowed, since you are certified, to train your team in this approach as well? So whoever you work with in these classes and workshops are also trained in this approach, or do they have to go out separately and get trained as well if they want to?
Yeah. So the way I look at my training, I'm more than happy to share anything that I've been trained in. The leadership team and I have meetings often and gatherings often, and I certainly share important things that I have learned that they might want to be informed about.
Okay.
Good question.
Okay. And so this Peace Club, you have, was reading online under your website, Janice Time. It's janicetime.org, correct, or .com?
Com.
.com.
.com.
And it's youth and adults. What makes these programs interactive? What do you mean by that? And then since you've been, give me a sense of how you determine the effectiveness of this approach within this participating demographic. Talk about that a little bit too.
I will. You mentioned that we offer Peace Club to adults and children. So Peace Club is for children and teens. And then there's another program called Mindfulness, Meditation, and More, and that's offered to adults. And right now I'm privileged to lead a 12-week session for the social service adults. And what people might be interested in is 5 of those sessions are about labyrinths. And 3 of those 5 sessions are about labyrinth crafts. So we meditate, we sit quietly, and then we do a craft. So I want to answer your question about being interactive. So Christiana, meditation can be really boring. I know, I do it every day. But in order to introduce it to any young person and any adult, I believe that they need to not only experience it, but be able to touch it in some way. So these Peace Club is offered all year long, and it is offered during the school years 4 evenings a week, and during the summer camp for 125 children. So in Peace Club, when we are doing a unit, let's say they walk into the room, they use a talking stick right away so they can talk about how they're feeling. I ask who wants to lead the meditation. We have a teacher's guide. Often they pick up the teacher's guide and they lead a beautiful meditation. And then we do a contemplative craft that they take home. And they not only take home this craft, I mean, who doesn't like that? They take home an inspirational message. So if we're doing the unit on loving kindness, they take home an inspirational message that they simply put in their pocket to remind them about sending love to themselves and others all week long. And in that loving kindness meditation, we actually do origami peace dogs or cats. They choose which one they do. And so they go home with this origami. It's often hung by a cord, and they can hang it right on their doorknob to remind them to simply breathe. One simple, mindful breath can be a meditation and change their life. So that's one of the many ways that we make it interactive. They have since the summer, you might find this funny, I did, when I was holding the Peace Circles last week. It was a Peace Circle unit because Summer Day is now ending. It was for 125 students 5 days a week, his summer day, and it was ending. So we held a peace circle so they could talk about what they enjoyed and what they did during summer day camp, and then play a game. Well, when I offered the talking stick so that they could answer the question one at a time and listen to each other, as I offered it around our circle, I kept hearing sucker meditation. I love sucker meditation. Oh my God, I love chocolate mindfulness. This I get. That is part of our curriculum, chocolate mindfulness. But the sucker meditation, I finally had to ask when I had the talking stick. I said to one of them who had mentioned sucker meditation, honey, what is sucker meditation? Well, it was the loving kindness unit, because the middle schoolers experienced a longer loving kindness meditation intentionally, and the leaders, including me, gave them a sucker so that we could get through the loving kindness meditation. And now they're calling it sucker meditation. I love that. So every week they go home with something they can use throughout the week, no matter what meditation we offer. And we offer many meditations. Yeah. And labyrinths. So interactive. So this summer, each group had 2 weeks on the labyrinth. The first week they came in the door, we held a circle so they could talk into the talking stick. We could find out how they're feeling. And then when I'm holding the talking stick, I talk about a labyrinth, and then they walk the labyrinth. And then afterwards, there was a labyrinth workshop where they could make labyrinths with glass globs, design their own labyrinths. And then they took home a labyrinth, 2-sided labyrinth on cardstock. After that unit, they loved the labyrinth so much, I said, well, let's do the next unit. Let's do next week's unit on the labyrinth. They were familiar with it. 125 kids had just walked the labyrinth, children and teens, the week before. So then we decided to have a body scan meditation in the middle of the labyrinth. Now, I'm going to tell you, the first group that came in were 7th through 9th grader boys. And they laid on the yoga mats in the middle of the labyrinth, Christiana, and they asked me not to get up after the body scan meditation was over. They wanted me to read it twice. That's beautiful, in the middle of the labyrinth. And then they got up, and then there was a different workshop available, and then they took home a different item that week. But that is, I believe that all this, peace circles, labyrinths, mandalas, mindfulness, meditation, can be weaved together effortlessly around the labyrinth. The labyrinth is really the center of everything I offer. So if we're in the meditation room, there's a labyrinth in the middle of our table. If we're on a labyrinth and we're holding a circle before we walk the labyrinth, so that means that all the chairs are in a circle, a labyrinth is in the middle of that circle. So I want them to ask about the labyrinth, because I want them to be able to walk labyrinths anytime, whether it's walking the sidewalk in Chicago as if it was their labyrinth, or their backyard, their snowy backyard, and making a pattern and making that their labyrinth. I want them to know labyrinths and to make it meaningful in their lives. So that's the interactive part. And yeah.
So I'm going to keep, we'll get to the other part of that question. I have a picture that I took off of your website that is and it looks to me like you use, like, the labyrinth that you walk is a shark design labyrinth, or that medieval shark. But then some of the ones that you use in your craft, here's a lovely, cute one that is a heart labyrinth that is just a open classical, but with one turn, and you have the little candy hearts on it, and with different sayings that people can take, so they can put messages to themselves on this heart labyrinth that's drawn in black with black lines, but in the shape of a heart. And then they put the candy hearts on it with smile and all different uh, beneficial or positive sayings that they can use and take home, and which I thought was really, really cute. So I can see that this is that how you work this and how this is a part of the curriculum is a very positive way to introduce something that they probably never experienced before, the whole idea of meditation and mindfulness and being mindful of your emotions and mindful of your body, mindful as you walk, mindful of each other. So this is constantly being repeated throughout the whole workshop or session, and then you have multiple sessions. I can see that this is can be very beneficial because it's a repetitive thing. It's not just something that happens once and then they don't ever. What you've done is created a very holistic approach to me, a holistic approach to shifting their perception of themselves and their relationships with others this way. So this is it's very interesting. And so, in what you said, you have a curriculum. So you said, so you were mentioning the peace circle part, and that was at the end of the entire, what did you say, 25-day or 20-day curriculum. So you have chapters that you do with these kids. So it's a very specific format that you've created, correct?
Well, it is specific, but it's also very, what I want to say, it flows. So the way the curriculum is, we have a teacher's guide, so anybody can come in and open up the binder and know exactly what to do that day. There are 8 volunteers, so I'm very, very lucky. I'm the 9th volunteer, and believe me, I spend many hours each week on Peace Club and also the program for mindfulness, meditation, and more for adults. So yes, you're right. The curriculum has teacher's guide. It has lesson plans. So you open up a binder, and the first week is all about mindfulness, and it's exactly what you can say to the group that comes in. And then the next week is about weaving into meditation and having them experience a meditation, but allowing them to listen to the bell quietly and listen deep enough that they can hear sounds inside or outside of themselves. I bring many singing bowls. Each age loves that. Then the 3rd week through the 12th week, the leaders, in which I'm one of them, gets to choose any curriculum they want. So there's curriculum built for mandalas, peace circles, labyrinths, and there's many things to choose in each curriculum. So under the labyrinth curriculum, there must be 2 or 3 pages probably, because there's many ideas. There's the core, what to talk about in relation to labyrinth, but there's also many other things they can do. And the heart-shaped labyrinth with the Valentine candy on it is just one of probably 12 different ideas that they can do with their groups. So they can do labyrinth rubbings with crayons. Chicago Lights buys the supplies. I used to buy them the first couple years, but I don't anymore. And all I do is get together with this wonderful leader of groups like Peace Club, and she orders all the supplies for me. So I tell her what we're going to do, what creativity we're going to have in each unit. And this summer day camp, every week that they came, and there were 50 sessions, 50. Every week that they came, they went home with something. I can't overemphasize that. And at the end of our time together, not only did we hold a peace circle, but they went home with wristbands that said peace. So what I always try to do, I'm kind of like the creative wacko. I don't know. I'm always thinking creatively. I always try to think of who they are and what what ideas, what creativity that they might be able to uh, think of outside of Peace Club. So, Christiana, one thing I want to mention is that it's wonderful to offer things like that inside Chicago Lights, but I think it's also important to think outside. So these 125 youth and children are being taught about labyrinths and much more. Um, so I'm very dedicated that they can walk labyrinths inside Chicago with their mother or their siblings or their friends. So I'm very dedicated, and I spend quite a bit of time to get labyrinths into the city. So last night I spent my evening at a meeting talking about labyrinths and how wonderful it'd be in my neighborhood if there was a labyrinth. I've made connections with the Obama Center, trying to get a labyrinth there, and I'm doing everything I can to make it happen. I have really good connections there. And also a labyrinth on a bike path in Chicago. And that one is actually in the hand of the city. And I'm waiting to hear either yes or no for that. I've done everything about proposals and given them pictures. So my idea is that when a labyrinth or three happens in Chicago, that those Chicago Light students hopefully will help build that labyrinth. I want them to experience things that they might not experience in their neighborhood. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have one of those youth be able to partner with the architect, the landscape architect, and know about a career path like that? So it's not just in Chicago Lights, it's actually looking for opportunities outside of Chicago Lights so that these labyrinth activities that they experience inside the nonprofit can happen outside in their community. And I think that is so important.
Well, yeah, this is absolutely. I totally agree with you, but I want to bring it back. You know, you talk about them bringing it outside of their community, but how do you determine the effectiveness of this curriculum within this participating demographic such that they desire to do this outside of their community, that they actually still aren't totally focused on whatever trauma they are experiencing, have experienced, will continue to experience within their community, and actually can see a bigger picture from themselves. So I'm wondering about this parameters and the effectiveness, and how do you determine that, or have you determined that since you started this and it's evolved into this Peace Club approach?
Another great question. How do we determine that things like meditation, mindfulness, labyrinths, mandalas, and peace circles, how do we determine that they are effective in this population or any population? So for me, I always look at the students that are coming to Peace Club or the adults that are coming to mindfulness, meditation, and more. And I look for possibly differences, either in their behavior or what they tell me. So every time, and Peace Club is offered for 9 weeks at a time throughout the school year, every time the 9th week comes, I always hold a circle. And I ask them to speak into how they, it's an open-ended question. So talk to me about Peace Club. And I can tell you all the way around the table with only one exception. They have all said that you can pass the talking stick, so you don't have to speak into the question, but everybody that chooses to speak into the question say they like Peace Club, they will continue choosing it often. It's an elective. They could choose science or basketball or cooking. art. They come to Peace Club to learn meditation because they're getting something from it. One girl, I'll share this message with you. So Peace Club has been at this nonprofit, and it's starting elsewhere also, but at this nonprofit for nearly 3 years. This young teen, beautiful, beautiful, they're all, I mean, you know, really, they're wonderful kids, honestly. This young girl dragged her feet into the meditation room, sat down in a chair, turned the chair around, and you could just tell she probably got stuck in Peace Club. Sometimes the leaders at Chicago Lights know Peace Club's good for them. Or maybe her other choices were already taken, who knows? But anyways, by the 3rd week, she turned that chair around. By the 5th week, she was leading meditations. She grabbed that teacher's guide every week and she'd open it up and lead a meditation. By the 8th week, she brought in a meditation she wrote. By the 9th week, when I held the circle and said, just speak into Peace Club, she talked the longest, and she was so truthful. She said, I didn't want to be here. I fought you every inch of the way. You kept loving me the moment I come in the door until I leave. You know, she said, quite frankly, I hated it at first. I hated the love. And then she said she felt like family. That young teen is now almost 3 years later, and she still signs up for Peace Club. And she brings her friends now who sign up for Peace Club. That's a beautiful story. And it's all about, Christiana, I would say it's not about mindfulness or meditation or mandalas or peace circles or labyrinths. I would say it's about relationships and loving them the moment they come in till the moment they leave. Yeah.
And do you think, you mentioned before that when you started, the Chicago Lights asked you to just do a class on meditation, and now it's progressed to this whole Peace Club. And you said that different parts of Chicago Lights request Peace Club.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
that is because of this, because they've seen that it's effective with these kids. They've seen the difference in the kids' behavior.
Yes, I will say that. I talked to the leadership team, especially the leader in charge of Peace Club, all the elective classes, just the other day. And I said to her, do you remember where we started almost 3 years ago? Now look. And she said to me, Janice, do you know, before we start summer camp each day, which is called Summer Day, we do I call it a mindfulness moment. I don't know what word she used. And the children want to lead it. So the children get in front of 125 of their peers, and they lead meditation. That is how deep it is. The meditation series that we offered at the farm, that's because the leaders at the farm, who are staff of Chicago Lights, heard something about Peace Club from either one of their students or another staff member. And so I get this email saying, hey, would you do a series of mindfulness meditation and the contemplative practices at the farm? Do you think we did it? Of course we did. And so that's how it happens. I believe in taking it deeply inside the nonprofit and also taking it outside so that others can experience it. Peace clubs are starting in Australia. So I was invited to go to Australia and offer a presentation about Peace Club in Sydney and Melbourne. I went to Lisa Gidron Moriarty, who's a friend of mine. She was keynote speaker at the Australian Labyrinth Network gathering. And so I kind of partnered with Lisa and we met up there. Well, Peace Clubs, the one thing about Peace Clubs is we don't want to hold on to it. We want to share. We have this curriculum and this wisdom, and we have results. some of which I told you a minute ago. So the thing about sharing Peace Club is that they in Sydney and Melbourne saw the presentation I offered. And at the end of the presentation, I say, if you're a nonprofit and that you can sign papers saying that no money will ever be involved in anything, ideas, or curriculum of Peace Club, you are gifted everything we've designed. Mm. And so Peace Clubs are starting in Melbourne, in the autistic community, autistic spectrum community. And also somebody contacted me from Sydney the other day and said, hey, Janice, a new school, nonprofit. Here's the population. What do you think? And I said, well, as long as it's nonprofit, no money's attached to it, here it is. So I want Peace Club and the team, we want Peace Club to go out and to be useful for others, but we don't want any money attached to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this demographic, so you're now changing the demographic. The demographic was inner city youth, primarily inner city youth to begin with. And I don't know how many different areas of Chicago, the Chicagoland area, were able to take advantage of this through this Chicago Lights program. But it was still primarily that participating demographic, which was inner city youth in Chicago. Now the demographic includes adults in their own program. Mm-hmm. And now you brought it to a whole different, not just country, but continent. And and now you're so let's talk about diversity in terms of this demographic. At first would you call it basically just a socioeconomic demographic within the inner city youth? But speak to that a little bit, because within that, where do we see this diversity? Are these kids able to handle regular school classes and curriculum, or are they also, do they have a sub layer? Are they PTSD? Are they ADHD? Are they, what are some of the other aspects of the demographic that you experience in these classes with these kids?
Mm-hmm. So Chicago Lights is very much dedicated to helping and supporting those who are challenged by poverty. That's where Peace Club started, and mindfulness, meditation, and more. And that's where we're focused. It keeps us very busy. But as far as students, I really, the only thing that I do is offer meditation. There is staff at Chicago Lights that would know things like ADD, ADHD, things like that, maybe a family dynamic where meditation might be helpful. That would be the staff, and I never get involved in that. At each meditation session that comes into the meditation room, they come with an aide, and the aide is familiar with maybe intricacies of each student. Now, I will say to you, Christiana, the truthfulness of it, I've never, ever had a student, and believe me, I've offered this probably to, without exaggerating, 300, 400 students, children, teens, and adults. Never once have I had a behavior problem. Now, they may talk and be taken out of the meditation room if we're meditating and they can't stop talking. The aide might do that. But truthfully, I only see successes that come into that room, that meditation room. And I don't know anything specifically about each student. I do know about one student, because not only do I do this, but I'm also a tutor, tutor mentor. This is my third year with this beautiful, maybe it's my fourth. No, I think it's my third. She's a beautiful young girl going into 5th grade, and we've been together 3 years. And that's another thing that I love, and it's about relationships. I'm with her 90 minutes every week, and It's about doing homework, but it's more about relationships. So I know a little bit about her family and this beautiful young girl, but the children that come into the meditation room, I don't know specifics about them other than I know that Chicago Lights, because they're at Chicago Lights, that they are challenged by poverty.
Well, you did mention that they have been through trauma, and so there could be any different kinds of. But the fact that you have never had in all of these with all of these kids, never had an issue with them, and even with the one example that the girl turning her seat around and not wanting to do it, the fact that by the end that she's leading all this stuff, and that is a pretty big sticker or star for this program in terms of how successful it is and how much of a difference it makes, and the fact that it is broad enough such that you take it to another continent, to another country, and another type of nonprofit that is completely different, focused on autism and the autism spectrum, and the people and the patients, I would call them patients, or people involved in their classes, and that they can see that they can bring this curriculum to them, makes it a pretty let me see now, beneficial, what's the other word I want to say? I mean, it's a broad-based curriculum that seems to me that could be effective in a many different diverse demographics. I mean, and that's where it's going, it seems to me.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, really, the curriculum's not just written for those who live in poverty. And I'll backtrack and say, if you think of poverty as a trauma, then all of them have experienced traumas. But it depends on how you look at poverty. But the curriculums and what the children experience really is about mindfulness meditation and ways to be able to sit with yourself quietly, because I believe the wisdom is inside of us, and to be able to reach into that wisdom and make really great decisions, live with less stress, and have a lot more fun in life. And that is universal. That can go out into the autism community. I've been contacted by the jail in Chicago. They're interested in talking to me about Labyrinths. I will be talking to them about Peace Club and mindfulness meditation and more inside the jail. I hope to solidify that in the latter part of the summer or early fall. But it can go any place the need is and the desire is. I use the ideas from the curriculum all the time in my life, all the time. You know, Janice, just sit down and breathe again, and breathe again. And maybe draw a simple circle on a paper and make it into a mandala. You know, how are you feeling right now? You know, color those feelings into the mandala. You know, get out origami paper and make something with origami. You know, do something contemplative that allows me to sit there with my truth inside myself so that I can make the wisest decision. And I will tell you, the children at Peace Club often tell me they are not as active as they used to be, that they're able to, when somebody makes them mad at school, they're able to stop and breathe and breathe and breathe and keep breathing until a better decision or no decision is made.
So would you say that this program, unlike many other social services programs, this is not a critique of them or not a critique of social service, but unlike many traditional ones, this program is an inner-directed program that is then, it's first inner-directed and then outer-directed, and it's not focusing on negative aspects of, for instance, the stress that goes along with being and living in poverty, or the
Yep.
trauma that poverty sometimes creates, or the cyclical effect of negative, 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 negative. It's a very positive, interdirected program using these tools
Mhm.
to then, and so therefore it can be used broadly, can be used for many different diverse communities across the board.
Without a doubt.
Hmm.
To think that Peace Club can be offered for, first through 12th graders, that's what we offer Peace Club to, and that mindfulness, meditation, and more can be offered to adults who are social service center guests. Some of them are underhoused. The same curriculum, just changed up for adults. It's all about being able to find the quiet within and to start loving ourselves, if we don't already, to really befriend ourselves deeply, and then be able to take that out in the world. Yeah. My motto really is one breath, one step, one city. So the one breath is mindfulness meditation. The one step is Labyrinths, and the one city, although that's not true anymore, is Chicago. Yeah.
And so introducing Labyrinths into this program, this is going to change, because one of the issues that we in the Labyrinth community have is that it's not, I mean, yes, there are labyrinths in a few prison programs. Yes, there are labyrinths at schools, but the having a program that can be broadly applied to many diverse demographic communities, community with diverse demographics, is not something that has really caught on. And so what you're, and I wouldn't call it revolutionary. It's just that what you've done is you've taken things that are now more acceptable: meditation, mindfulness, labyrinths. 10 years ago, these ideas, these tools weren't as acceptable. I mean, you didn't have yes, you had people doing yoga. Of course you've had, it comes from a deep tradition in the East Asia, but in the Western countries, you didn't have this. And so now what you've done is you've taken these areas and combined them and created this curriculum. It's maybe that this is exactly what's needed now, that this is, the timing is perfect. Is that something that you feel? Because it sounds to me like it's like you've got a tiger by the tail here, because here you've this at first was just within Chicago, but now you've gone to Australia. Now they're asking for now the prison system is looking at this, because unlike before, and I, after being a part of a prison labyrinth program, um, that was somewhat loosely constructed. What you've done is you have this curriculum that can be applied to many different types of communities. So speak to that a little bit. Do you think that the time has come for this? That's why it's so, you really do have a tiger by the tail here, maybe.
Well, I think the time is right for this. That's how I feel. That's why I'm putting a lot of time, Christiana, into this. And I hope it goes out into helpful ways. Um, for me, what's really important is that because every minute that has been spent on Peace Club or mindfulness, meditation, more have been volunteer time. And so I want people to know where Peace Club and mindfulness, meditation, and more comes from, and that they are attached, or they have a nonprofit, and that no money is attached. That is really important to me. So I think the time is right, because I think right now we live in a time that's, for me, I only speak for myself, is relatively uncertain. And I think having something as centering as the tools that are offered inside Peace Club and mindfulness, meditation, and more, to have those at our fingertips so that we can come back to the center within is really important, and especially now.
I'm going to diverge 1 second. We do have someone else on with us on the GoToMeeting. If that person would like to ask a question now, we're in the last 10 minutes of the show. Whoever this is, would you like to, if you'd like to speak up, you're welcome to ask Janice a question right now. State your name and maybe where you're from, and ask Janice a question. If I don't hear anything, we'll just continue, because I have some more questions. Okay. I mean, anybody can just come in and listen too, and so that's totally fine. So from what I'm going to refer back to something you said before and just repeat it just now. And this whole idea of a nonprofit, that it must be a nonprofit, that they're not reaping the benefits of this curriculum that you've created. How do and you have already offered this to some nonprofits in Australia. How do you fund this? How do you pay for the curriculum materials? And how do they, when you send out this booklet or this pamphlet, this binder that you have that is the teacher curriculum, how do you fund this? How is that going to happen, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so no funds are necessary, for sure. I've been doing it for 3 years, and like I said, I paid for the supplies primarily myself the first 2 years, and now Chicago Lights pays for the supplies. And I'm talking about the takeaways, the paper, the cardstock, stuff like that. For me, really, the next 2 months, one of the things I'm doing is updating the curriculum. There isn't any money involved. I have everything. It's the curriculum has lesson plans for, I think, 12 different weeks of mindfulness. The booklets, that's where my concentration is this summer, about updating the booklets. The booklets can easily be sent, and people can print them off and use them. Every child and teen that comes to Peace Club gets a booklet, so they actually go home with the meditations that they can offer to their family. So there isn't really any cost. The cost is my time. I will be truthful. And that is so much why the team has decided that that nonprofits is it, and no money attached. Yeah.
Well, now what happens though? I mean, I understand that within the Chicago community, but what happens now with the nonprofits in Australia? I mean, is this still connected to Chicago Lights, and they're willing to send, or do they just download it you just send it as downloadable files, and they can download it themselves? I mean, how is that going to work when you get it out to a wider community, when you get it out to the prison programs, et cetera, like that? How is that going to be funded?
Yeah. So they download the booklets, the lesson plans, the teacher's guide, and there is an agreement that's signed at first, saying that they are nonprofit, no money's attached, yada yada, and then they are gifted the items. And the cover, the front cover and the back cover, mention Chicago Lights in the booklets. And so what in the agreement they say that they will copy all from cover to cover, and that way we know that it is not just piecemeal and that they're taking it and sharing it with others. And if anybody else wanted any of the material, they would be contacting me, and then I would go through the, the agreement, the gentle agreement we have.
Yeah.
So yeah, there really isn't any cost other than volunteer hours right now. And if they're a nonprofit, they can, if they decide to have those crafts for their people to go home with, mindfulness crafts, they can have the nonprofit pay for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I now I get it. So that I just had to be sort of clear because this is a spiral. It seems to me like a spiraling outward of this a core a core request that from 3 years ago, and that it's becoming a bigger and bigger spiral, which is so exciting. It's certainly a labyrinthine path that you're on. Um, what do you see? You mentioned the possibly the prison programs, and what do you see? Do you see yourself taking this uh, in different directions? Um, and what do you see as the and if what do you envision for this Peace Club curriculum?
Well, that's another good question. So, remembering that I have this fabulous team of 8 adult meditators, um, I am hoping to be able to look at Peace Club and mindfulness, meditation, and more to flow wherever it's meant to flow, just like a labyrinth. So my newest thing in Chicago really are labyrinth pop-ups. So I have a new labyrinth, and it's used for pop-ups around the city. So I want people to get to know labyrinths and just walk in peace without anything attached to it, no money, anything. And so that's my new fun thing. And I look at that the same way. I never know where I'm going to throw out that labyrinth. But every time I throw it out, it's meaningful for at least one person. And it's kind of like the labyrinth, isn't it?
And what kind of, so is this a canvas labyrinth that you've painted, and what kind of, give me some particulars about this labyrinth pop-up idea.
Yeah. So it's something I've thought of for years and activated just recently. So it was made by Paths of Peace. Mm-hmm. And it is, oh gosh, I can put it on the subway and buses. So it's portable, but it's big enough to walk. And it is treated canvas. So it's outdoor, it's made out of awning material. My other 4 labyrinths are indoor labyrinths. And if you're in labyrinth world, you understand what that means. So, but this is treated in a way that I can throw it out on the ground. I make labyrinths on the lakefront here also. So between me making labyrinths with a simple rake there, or throwing out my labyrinth at the largest park here in Millennium Park or Grant Park, it's all positive. And who knows where labyrinths are going to go. The last time I threw out my labyrinth, it was in front of Buckingham Fountain, a huge fountain here in Chicago. It's really a tourist area, and the locals like it because it's so beautiful with this beautiful fountain. And one of the memories I have is that a teacher walked up, and she's a young, beautiful woman. And she said, "What is this?" And after I chatted with her, she walked it and she said, "You know what? I'm gonna Google labyrinths when I get home, and I think now I'm going to make one for my school." Mm. Hey, we never know where it's gonna go. Mm. Yeah, I hope labyrinths just keep flowing. Mm. Where they land, I think, is very intentional.
Well, Janice, this has been really, really fascinating. I have to ask you for another anecdote. um, anecdote from. I'm just curious about the parents of these kids, what they say. Have you had any repercussions or comments from the parents after these kids have gone through one of your seminars or the whole summer camp, or what do they say to you, and or some of the adults from the adult classes? um,
Yeah,
do you have anything you can share with us?
I do. So tomorrow I'll be with the parents because summer day camp is now over. And so the big culminating event is tomorrow, and it's starting out with Peace Club. Actually, there's volunteers that's going to get up there, and they're going to do some of the activities that we do at Peace Club. Certainly the meditation, and that starts the whole program, which is pretty exciting because there'll be about 200 people there. So they'll hear the word Peace Club and be able to see the children lead them in meditation. I will hear from some of the parents tomorrow for sure. And I would say the other adults are the adults that come to the 12-week series that I'm holding right now of mindfulness, meditation, and more for the social service guests. And the interns and the guests of the social service center. Last week, we did a labyrinth craft after we meditated. And the labyrinth craft, the interns left out that door, and they looked back and they said, "Thanks, Janice, that was so much fun." So they took home a labyrinth with them. The guests that come that are part of the social service center, they only come back because they want to. This is an elective class for them. They're with me for an hour, and they only do it because they want to. Yeah.
And how have anybody commented that because you're talking about bringing it back into their lives and outside of the classroom itself, and you did mention that a child has come up to you and said, if somebody's bothering me or harassing me or in my or angry, I remember to breathe, and I remember to. So have any of the parents said anything about how it has changed their interactions with their children, or changed their interactions with their peers or at work or anything like that? As have you gotten anything like that from anyone?
Well, I don't have much interaction with the parents, and the reason why is because I think it'd be helpful to know Chicago Lights, there are buses that pick up children on the near south side of Chicago and near west side, and they're bused into Chicago Lights. So the children are bused in, fed dinner, they go to a elective class, then they go to their tutor for 90 minutes. That happens 4 nights a week. So I don't have much interaction with the adults. They're adults. I will tomorrow. I'll be with many of their adults tomorrow, and I'll be early at the event so that if the parents want to talk to me about anything, they certainly can. The social service center guests, they especially love the labyrinth. That is so meaningful. And they especially love to hear where there are other labyrinths in Chicago that they can walk on their own, the few that are out there. So I do know that they keep coming back, and they keep asking me for different things inside Chicago Lights and the guests, that they seem to really enjoy it. Yeah. And they live in a lot of stress. When you live in poverty, you live in stress. So I'm glad to help relieve some of their stress. That's what this is about.
You're doing one last thing. You are going to be leading a workshop at the gathering this year outside of Chicago in Woodstock, Illinois. And do you want to say a couple of words about the workshop that you're going to be presenting?
Oh, thanks, Christiana. I would have regretted not speaking into that. I would have hung up and said, oh, darn it.
Yeah,
You
really.
know, so Christiana, thank you. Yes, I am holding a workshop. It's a 90-minute workshop, and it's really about Peace Club and mindfulness, meditation, and more. And it allows every participant to actually experience some of the I don't want to say things, but the how, allowing them to experience what Peace Club and mindfulness, meditation, and more is about. And also to be able to make some of the crafts. So they will see a presentation, experience it themselves, and also make some of the crafts. The best thing in my mind is after they see their presentation, if they have a nonprofit, then we can talk about maybe bringing Peace Club or mindfulness, meditation, and more into their nonprofit. Yeah.
Ah, so
Yeah.
actually a very practical application for them. And I'm trying to see when you are presenting. You are presenting. I'm looking at here. Um,
I
where?
don't know.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, it is on the Labyrinth schedule here, and
It is.
yes. And Janice Lewis. Okay, you are presenting Sunday morning, sowing the seeds of peace in Chicago and in the world. Um, so yeah, so everybody be aware that Janice will be presenting. Um, and this is October 5th to the 7th at the gathering in Woodstock. It's on the website, on the TLS website. If you want to, you're interested. Janice is one of 25 or so different presenters, presenting all different subjects, topics having to do with labyrinths, as well as we have two featured speakers. So if you want to know more, just go to the Labyrinth Society website gathering pages, and you'll find all about that. So we are at a time, and it's just really been such a pleasure sharing this hour with you. I think what you're doing is brilliant, and I really do believe that the time has come for this multi-pronged approach that can be used across the board in many different types, diverse communities. And I just think it's brilliant and just so germane for what you were talking about, that people are under stress, that people are facing uncertainty during at this time that we're living in right now, and what a beautiful uh, succinct way, what a multi-pronged way of and gentle way of shifting our ability to deal with the times we're living in right now. That is, uh, it can be so beneficial, and the labyrinth is such a huge part of that. So thank you for sharing this
Mm.
hour with me and with the community, and hopefully with a lot of different people out there in the wider community, Chicago and the rest of the world. So thank you for joining me today, Janice.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you, Christiana.
Many, many continued blessings on your path, and so looking forward. Janice is also on the board. She is the membership chair, and she's doing an amazing thing with membership with regional reps. She's increased the regional rep program 10 or 20 fold. I think there's now, how many regional reps do we have now?
I
30.
think there's 52.
50.
Proud to say, but Christiana, I just want to correct one thing. I don't do anything alone. I have such great teams.
Yeah.
And inside membership, there are teams, and there's a great regional rep coordinator and a volunteer coordinator and membership coordinator. And inside Peace Club, there's a great team of people. So believe me, I don't do anything in isolation. I believe it's best to do it in a team. And
Yes.
I'm on the board with you. So,
Yes.
hey, That's great.
Yeah, yeah. It is very much a team effort, and it takes a community, it takes a village. It really is so apropos of everything that you do, Janice, and being on the board and being a part of this labyrinthine journey of peace and reconciliation and sharing and diverse communities coming together. It's just and I could just go on and on and on. So I better stop right now because we're way out of time. So thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. And
My
looking
pleasure.
forward to seeing you in the fall and have a wonderful time with your group. Tomorrow night, you said it was
Tomorrow afternoon.
tomorrow
Yeah.
afternoon. Yeah.
Thank you, dear. It was
Okay.
wonderful.
Well,
Okay.
you're welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you. So
Yep, my pleasure.
Great. Thank you. So you've been listening to Labyrinth Society, the Labyrinth Society's Many Paths, Many Visions on GoToMeeting and broadcasts by Spreaker with your host, Christiana Britton. Be sure to check the Labyrinth Society website media area, their Facebook page and global group, YouTube and Google Plus for a list of upcoming dates and guests. Also, if this podcast has piqued your interest in the Labyrinth Society and you'd like more information about membership, please go to www.labyrinthsociety.org/membership. So, ciao, namaste, and may you find what you need on your path through life.